Okay, YouTube, I'm back. I actually ended up measuring out 80 ounces of oil, which is 5 pounds, and that ended up, with my math, being 11.04 ounces of lye, which I have here. And for every pound of fat, you use 4 pounds, or 4 ounces of water, so I measured out 20 ounces of water. So now what I'm going to do is add my lye to my water. And I'm doing this one-handed, so bear with me. And just stir. You want to make sure you stir until this is clear, or almost clear. Okay, and be sure to have your gloves on. You don't want to get this on you. It can burn pretty nasty, and if you do, just spray a little vinegar on there, which I also have handy. I've learned many times, and it doesn't burn right away. That's the thing, is, you don't just immediately feel it, even though it's very, very hot. It seems to kind of immediately deaden the area when it starts to burn, and then you'll start to feel a sting later on, almost like a mosquito bite, where you don't quite feel it right away, and then you do, start to gradually feel, some kind of a stinging sensation. So, I've got my lye all mixed up. Put this over there, and then we put the lye into the fat. Nice steady stream. You don't want to splash. So now, I'm trying to shake this off. I should have taken this out before. We're going to use our spoon to initially stir it up. I'll move it closer. Now, I want to talk about the difference between laundry soap, or cleaning soap really, and body soap. Body soap, you want to make it bubbly and smell good, and probably add in some colors and some minerals and micas and vegetable and fruit powders, and I do all those things. I do. It's nice, and I make it a pleasure. But with laundry and cleaning soap, you actually want to keep it really simple. You want to make sure it's low sudsing, because it's not the suds that clean. It's the actual properties of the soap, so you don't have to worry about it being really bubbly and sudsy. Plus, it's just that much more you have to keep wiping up, and it does become a pain. Of course, if it's too bubbly, you can always spray it down with vinegar, and that does help, but you just want to keep it low suds. Now, what I do with my laundry soap is, with my math, usually what you'll do for laundry soap is I'll keep it at a 0 or a 1% discount, I suppose you could say. What that is soap is not lye and fat. It actually saponifies into soap. It becomes something else altogether. And what you want to make sure is you have enough oil for every molecule of lye. So what you'll do is you'll actually discount 5% the amount of lye that you put into the fat to make sure that there's an slight overage of fat. You don't want it too over, because it will actually turn rancid, because that's what oils do. But you want to make sure, there's just enough to kind of cover every single bit of lye in case your math or your measurement was a little bit off. So what I do is I actually do this at about 1% discount, because this is just for cleaning and it's for laundry, and the vinegar will actually neutralize it, and it does usually cure pretty well. Now, for body soap, you want to do 5%. What you do is you take the number that you got when you multiplied, the ounces by the saponification level, and you took 5% away from that, and that's actually what you'll do for body soap. Now, there's something else that people will do to cover that. It's called super fatting. Instead of doing the math for the 5% discount, they'll just add 5% more oils at trace. And trace is what I'm actually trying to achieve now. I'm blending the oil in the water, and the lye is actually the emulsifier that will change it all into soap. And when it starts to look like cooked pudding, and where it leaves kind of a trace on the top, which it's nowhere near right now, that's actually when you start adding all your goodies in, if that's what you're going to do with the batch. Be it soap safe fragrance, soap safe colors, pumice, walnut hulls, apricot pits, pumice, minerals, parsley powder, anything like that. That's actually when you'll add it. So what I'm going to do is just keep on stirring this, and I will actually start using my immersion blender here shortly. Matter of fact, let's grab that now. It's going to be a little bit loud, so I do apologize ahead of time for the noise, but there we go. And keep it low. You actually don't want it to be up here because it will splash soap and that will not feel great. So now, I had mentioned before about using a hand mixer versus the immersion blender. I actually already tell the difference. The hand blender would have, made a lot of froth and put a lot of air in here, and this does not. This simply mixes it. You have to make sure you keep it below the surface, though, because it will shoot out soap. You want to make sure you don't use this the entire time because you'll get what you call a false trace. What a false trace is when you've overmixed the soap or the lye in the water and the fats, and what it does is just basically whipped together, and it doesn't actually start bonding with each other. So you don't want to overmix it because that's actually what it'll cause. So I do a little blast about 20, 30, even 40 seconds of immersion blender, and then I'll go back to just stirring the soap. And you have to keep stirring. And if you feel like it's not really coming together, leave it for about 5-10 minutes and then come back and, start stirring it again. You don't want to leave it for too long because it will separate, and if it gets too cold, it just simply won't come together. You will have to heat it up, not directly on the stove. You'll have to do a double boiler style. And the outside of the pan, even through these gloves, I can feel is considerably hot. It's very, very hot. I wouldn't say it was enough to really burn you, but it's a little uncomfortable to put your finger on. So I'm just going to keep stirring this up. When you first mix it together, it almost achieves kind of a peach color. You can kind of see it on the outside, but that will go away, and this will end up making a very, very hard white bar. And then when it gets to trace, remember I talked about those soap chips I had knocked off the pan before? I'll add those in. And when you make cleaning soap and you add, and you're adding in chips from maybe a body batch from before, you actually don't want to add that much because you want to keep this low suds. And if you add a lot of, bubbly soap in there, this is going to make it high suds, and you've kind of defeated the purpose of using a low suds fat. And every fat has a different property that it brings to the soap. Like lard is very hard, it's creamy lather, and it makes a very white bar. Coconut oil makes a hard bar, but it's very, very bubbly, and you actually don't want to use that for more than maybe 10% of your recipe because it can be irritating to the skin. But the mariners actually used to use 100% coconut oil soap because it was the only soap that would actually lather in the seawater. So that's what they would use to wash their clothes and possibly themselves. Olive oil, another common oil used. It takes a very long time to come to trace, but it makes kind of a light yellowish brownish bar, and it's a creamy lather. Palm oil makes a softer bar. Soy oil makes a softer bar, very good for moisturizing. I do use that in my body bars. I actually use a base of lard and coconut and soy. So that's basically what's in my body bars. And every once in a while I'll throw some palm oil in there. It just depends on if I find it on sale. But I really just make what you would call grocery store soap. Whatever I can find goes into it. So I'm going to keep stirring this into the trays, and then I'll start adding in my soap chips, and when it's ready, I'll bring it back and we'll add the fragrance and pour it into the molds.